We are live. You are listening to UnReal Radio, your weekly tour through the strange and mysterious. I am your host, Joe Diamond. We are live on May 21st, 2017. Thank you to everyone who's tuning in and listening to us live. It's been a crazy couple weeks. You guys will have to go, as usual, onto my social media to figure out where everything's been going on, because we've got a ton of other cool stuff to talk about tonight. If you get a chance, I don't have it on my public. On my public social media yet. I only have it on my personal. But if you go to, I'll be putting it up on the UnReal Radio Show Facebook page, which is facebook.com/UnReal Radio Show. Last week, I saw the Guillermo del Toro exhibit in Minneapolis at Home with Monsters. It's amazing. It's wonderful. Those of you who are fans of strange, weird horror movies that we've talked about on the show, and those of you who've listened to the shows after me, you'll definitely want to check these out, so be keeping an eye out on that page. I'll be dropping that later this week on the UnReal Radio Show Facebook page. Also, you'll want to check it out right now anyway, because you can find out about tonight's guest, who we will get to in a moment, Jason Michaels. But I also wanted to say, former guest of the show, Cody Clark, has a GoFundMe going on because his car broke down at the Orlando Fringe Festival, and he needs to replace the entire transmission. It's a full $3,000 to get the transmission fixed. I'm doing an update here to see. It's $3,600. He's already in only 3 days raised a third of that money. So if by the end of a week he can be 2/3 done, and after a couple days have it completely taken care of, that's awesome. You'll want to look up Help Cody Replace His Transmission. Or again, you can just go to facebook.com/Unreal Radio Show. Guys, even if it's $1, even if it's $5, whatever you can. He's got some cool prizes up for that as well. But at the same time, go help out a fellow performer. Help him get home with his car in one piece. Again, he's already a third of the way there after only a couple days, but every little bit helps. The campaign is trending. Go check it out and kick them. Again, you can skip the latte tomorrow on behalf of me. Please skip the latte tomorrow and kick the $3 to $5 over to Cody to get his transmission replaced and make it home. So with that out of the way, I'm going to kick right over to tonight's guest. He is a magician. He is also an author. He just wrote a book, You Can Do the Impossible Too: How One Man Overcame Tourette's Syndrome to Become an Acclaimed Professional Magician, and How You Too Can Live Your Biggest, Boldest Life. I want to welcome to the show Jason Michaels. Jason, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Oh, I'm excited. Thank you. So yeah, this is exciting to get to chat with you. It'll be fun.
It has been a while. It has been a while since the last time we chatted. And I have I've been wanting to. When I had you on the show, when I told you, hey, I want to have you on the show, I'll admit there's one other selfish reason I wanted to have you on.
Okay.
But we will get to it later. We will get to it later. That's the tease, because there have been some strange and unusual coincidences since we last hung out in Nashville, which is where you're from. Yes, and that's where you're calling from.
Yeah. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I was born just south, and I grew up here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And the book releases May 23rd, but you can get your copy on your website, jasonmichaelsmagic.com. Again, this is on the Facebook page, you guys, but you can just go directly over to jasonmichaels.com to find out more about the book and such. And we'll talk more about the details of that in a moment. But as with all my guests, Jason, I would like to start out at the beginning. What got you started in magic and performing?
Of course, yeah, absolutely, and I talk about this in the book. When I was about 16 years old, some buddies and I used to play cards together. We would just play cards on Friday or Saturday nights every now and then. And what happened was, one day I thought to myself, hey, I wonder what would happen if I do a card trick. Of course, I didn't know any card tricks, and nobody that I played cards with had done any card tricks. I just thought, I wonder I wonder if people would react well to that. So I went out to the bookstore and got a book. And as I started reading through the book, I was like, when you read a book on magic, card tricks, it sounds amazing, the stuff that you're going to be able to do. I'm like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm reading like the description. Here's what's gonna happen. I'm like, oh, I got to learn this, and then I'd read the how it was done and like what I was gonna have to do to pull it off, and I was like, that will not fool anybody. so, so basically I read through the whole book and I found a couple that I thought, oh, this is really cool. This would be great. So, I learned one, and if I'm being honest, I probably didn't really think it would fool or impress anybody, that first card trick I did. But we were playing cards,
Mm-hmm.
and we just kind of came to a break, and I said, hey, let me show you guys something, and I did this card trick, and everybody just went crazy, and I was like, hang on, I think I'm on to something here. This may be something. And so that's kind of what got me interested in like magic. But then it's about the exact, I say exact, it was very, I mean, maybe within a couple of months time.
Mm-hmm.
It was the exact same year. I'm a junior in high school. I had enrolled in speech and drama class because I thought it looked fun, it looked interesting, and they they had something at my school called the junior senior play, which it meant that only juniors and seniors could go out for it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just decided to audition for this play, and I had no experience. I mean, other than maybe 6 or 8 weeks of speech and drama class. And I auditioned for this play, and I ended up getting a role. I got a huge role, and
Cool.
from the time that I stepped out on that stage and the audience started laughing at the right lines and they started responding to the things that we were doing on stage, and then they give you the big round of applause at the end of the show. It's just like an amazing high that you're on, and for me,
Mm-hmm.
what was weird is just it just felt so normal. Well, it's not normal, but it felt very natural. It felt
Yeah.
very like I was in a place that I felt like I was supposed to be when I was on that stage, and so it's those two instances that really, one got me interested in performing in general, and that was the play, because for years I thought I was going to be an actor. I mean, studied theater in college.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was going to move to LA or New York. I just had some opportunities open up for me. That is why I ended up becoming a magician instead. But yeah, that's kind of how I got started.
Very cool. Do you don't again? You do not have to go into any sort of methodology. I know we do have other people in the industry who do listen. But do you
Sure.
remember what the effect of that first card trick was?
It was a trick. You know what? What is crazy about this is that now that I meet lots of other magicians, it what I have found out is I don't know if it was the same book, but this is a popular trick among magicians. It's a trick where um, you have a deck of cards, they pick the card, they put their card back in the deck, and then you start going through the cards, and you're turning cards over one at a time so that they can
Mm-hmm.
see their cards turning face up, and then you say at some point, the next card I turn over will be your card. Well, they think that I've totally screwed
Nice.
up at this point. They
Yeah.
think, well, wait a minute, they're looking at the card that's sitting on the table, it's down in the stack, and then basically what happens is I kind of pull the rug out from underneath them and I pull it off and become, it's a killer trick. It's one of those that nobody sees coming, and then you pull the trick off at the end, and everybody's freaking out and they can't believe that you did it because they
Yeah.
thought there was no way in a million years you'd be able to pull it off.
Oh, absolutely.
So
I would. I did that. That was one of the first ones I started out with as well.
I know that's the
So,
crazy
which
thing.
is
So many
awesome.
people did.
Well, I think it's because deep down we think like, oh wait, if I bet them, because the whole thing I learned was I'll bet you $5 next card turnover is your card. I'll bet
That's
you, you know,
exactly.
you gotta, go see a movie with me if I turn over the next card. Not that I ever
Yeah.
did that. Never, not,
No,
no, I
no.
never did that. Ever. How convincing was that?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
that's exactly what happened, because I always felt guilty for like taking somebody's dollar or $2 or $5, but I did it a few times and people were just like, "Nah, dude, you got it." They like want you to take the money. It's like, "Nah, you're
awesome.
right."
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, that's wonderful. And it just goes to show that like we've all got to start somewhere. We've
Sure.
something like that, and I think the important thing of something like that is the interaction. And I think there's a lot of people and we can. Well, this is a little bit of magic theory, but again, I know our listenership doesn't mind this too much. But like I think so much modern magic has the challenge taken out, or people feel like, or performers think, oh, we need to take the challenge out of the magic trick or the card trick or something like that. When really what they do is they take the conflict out, and conflict is a big important thing in drama, and that piece when you look at that card trick as a piece of drama, that's where a bit of the conflict comes in, because they can't be too mad because they know they're taking a sure bet. They know they're screwing with you, which is an interesting and when you turn it over, they can't be too mad at you because they, knowing full well in some case, took the bet, in not in bad terms, or in bad faith, but it's an interesting back and forth, which I think is fun, and I think is what's missing in a lot of stuff, where they just go for we should do this, and then they should laugh or clap or freak out or whatever without any thought as to why they should. Man, I haven't thought about that effect in a while. That is awesome.
Oh, it's a killer. I think you're right though, because when I talk to people about magic and the things that they tend to remember, a lot of times, and not always, but most of the time, are the interactive elements. And so when there is interaction, there has to be like at least I think maybe a little element of where they just can't believe that something's going to happen, or else you're doing miracles. I mean, this is so. And then I kind of have a theory, since you're talking about,
go ahead.
They knew that they were kind of, pull one over on you. I kind of have a theory that magic is nothing but a big con game. I mean, it's just a con game that we're all, everybody, you and me, and everybody who's participating in together.
Well, we can also extend that to show business as well.
Sure.
I mean, to a large degree. Well, and here's the thing too. A lot of people, like, I don't want to get into this too much, but it was just on the replay of the show before me. But the term con and con artist has been in the media a lot lately, without getting into terms as to why. But it's out there a lot recently, and I think people just they're using that rather than swindler. Whereas con game is just short for confidence game, and it's about having confidence. And I can't remember where I heard this. I don't know. Actually, you might know. I'm not sure. But I heard a quote years ago where it was, confidence means having the most options possible. If you're standing on a floor in a giant gymnasium, you're pretty confident you're not going to fall, because you have a lot of, and even if you do fall, there's a lot of options for where you can fall. If you are jumping, or if you're on like a high wire act, you don't have a lot of options to your left and right. You only have the options directly ahead. Thus, that's where people, get nervous and such. The more options you have, the more confident you feel. Whether those options are an illusion or not is where the con game comes into, and we can get into that later on. So what I want to know is, so you were doing this for your friends. I'm going to take a stab here in that after that you had to do a new card trick every week. Is that what happened?
I don't really remember doing many other card tricks for the guys. I remember they loved it, and I'm sure. Well, I had a whole book of them, so I mean, yes, of course, I'm sure I learned a few more. Although I don't remember which ones I would have learned.
Gotcha.
That one is so locked into my brain because it's that first experience that you have. But the experience did lead me to a magic shop that was in Nashville. Cool. Yeah. So, I mean, I'd never seen a magic shop before. I'd never even met a magician before. I had no clue about any of this stuff. And, but I started thinking, I had done this card trick, and, like I said, I probably learned one or two others. And now I'm thinking to myself, well, what else could I learn? Well, there is something called sleight of hand, although I have no idea what sleight of hand is. Then there's, of course, magic and magicians. I wonder what that's all about. So I just kind of stumbled my way into a magic shop, and my whole world shifted at that point, because I'd never seen any of this stuff. It was unbelievable. So
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So what was the next step after that? Was it learning more sleight of hand? Was it going more into stage, or was it sort of a mixture?
You know, I think I learned sleight of hand probably. So I had dreams of having a big, huge magic illusion show.
Hmm.
At the time that I was into it, you had David Copperfield on television all the time, every year, and stuff like that. So as someone who was getting comfortable, more and more comfortable on the stage, that felt very natural to me. So I was like, well, I should just do stage performance, and uh, but as you well know, um, if you're developing big, huge illusions and stuff like that, there's a lot of cost involved. And I'm not talking about like building equipment. I'm just talking about you have to have a theater performing, you have to have an assistant. I mean, there's a
Hmm.
lot of cost as far as time, effort, resources. So, it to me, what was super easy was for me to be able to pick up a deck of cards, which only cost $2 or $3, and be able to entertain people like that. Now, I wasn't performing for hundreds of people at once, but it did.
Hmm.
It was that immediate performance and immediate feedback, and it was certainly a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed learning all sorts of close-up magic. But yeah, so I wanted to be sort of an illusionist, but that was a little bit, I guess, out of reach. But
Yes.
you know,
You were not alone in that. It's
yeah,
like, I want to
yeah,
do this. I don't have
yeah,
millions of dollars. Okay, what else
right,
can I do?
exactly.
Well, looking at your website, jasonmichaels.com, you go by the term the card shark.
Yeah,
Uh,
Jason. Well, it's jasonmichaelsmagic.com.
yes,
I don't want to. Yeah,
jasonmichaelsmagic.com.
yeah,
But it looks like this is the name of your show. Is that correct?
yeah. It's so that's an interesting story.
I want to hear it. Let's hear it.
So it's a little. I'll try to be sort of brief. So I didn't. I
You
never.
do not have to be brief at all.
Okay,
We're a good 10 minutes until our next ad break. So be as
okay. So
unbrief as you'd like.
when I was getting into magic, and I really liked card tricks. I really liked them a lot. I had heard of this thing called sleight of hand, but I had no idea what it was. And I didn't really, as a young person who's just getting into magic, you go and you see these other magicians. And me personally, even though I was a good performer on stage, I was a little bit shy. And I wasn't going to walk up to some magician and say, can you teach me something? I didn't feel worthy of that knowledge. I didn't feel worthy of those secrets. So, um, I wasn't learning sleight of hand. So what ended up happening was I started purchasing some, at the time it was VHS videotapes, and I started learning. It was called Easy to Master this or Easy to Master that, and I thought, well, if it's easy to master, maybe I can master it. And so
Yep.
I started learning these tricks that, and in the process of learning these tricks on these easy to master videotapes, I was learning sleight of hand little by little, and I kind of didn't even realize it. And then at some point, I was like, "Wait a minute! I know this technique, and I know this technique, and I know how to do this. Wait, this is what sleight of hand is." And so, what ended up happening was, after I had built up some confidence, I purchased a book, and it was a relatively new book at the time, and the book was called Card Shark, and it was by an author named Darwin Ortiz, who is an outstanding sleight of hand expert,
Absolutely.
gambling expert, and for the next, I mean, it was so I knew a little sleight of hand, but I didn't know nearly enough to really be doing most of the material in this book. So to kind of fast forward like 20 years, and I um, basically was working on a cruise ship, and I decided that what I wanted to do was I wanted to find a way to take my love of performing for larger audiences, and I'm just talking about, it doesn't even have to be a huge audience. It could just be 100 people. It's larger than say three or four. Typically magic and close-up magic is performed for usually relatively small groups of people. You might be able to perform for 12, 15, 20, maybe 30 people at a time if you stage it right. But most of the time you can't perform for 100 or 200 or 250 people or anything like that. So what I did was I said, I want to take my love of performing on stage, I want to combine it with sleight of hand, and I created a show. And the show is an autobiographical show of different scams and cons and hustles that I have been taken by. This means this is all a true story, that I have been taken by over my young adult life and into my adult life. Um, this story kind of tells my story of how I got into magic from the very beginning of my grandfather, showing him some tricks and stuff like that, all the way up to, learning card cheating techniques and all that other stuff. And so the show Card Shark is this very personal show. I love this show. It's a whole lot of fun, but it goes all the way back. The title goes all the way back to that book that I bought, when I was probably, I guess, I don't know, maybe 18 years old. So
Awesome. That's really awesome. That's really, really cool. Because I think a lot of guys, like in our industry, Ricky Jay has become very known for doing, gambling demonstrations and cheating demonstrations and such.
Sure.
As has Darwin and such. I mean, Ricky Jay has a more theatrical side. Darwin actually like consults for casinos, if I remember correctly. So he knows a lot of the inside technique of that kind of thing as well. But like, I love that rather than, and it's a common motif, but I love how you're taking that common motif that invokes an idea and kind of flipping it on its head a little bit, rather than you being the person who's, showing the ethical con. You're talking more about being conned yourself. And that I think is really cool and really interesting that not too many other magicians get into. I like, they don't tell the stories of, I was totally taken in by this guy at the bar once. He shortchanged me. It was perfect. It's like no one wants to admit that on one level.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's true. I don't know. I think it's interesting how at different points I got scammed in different ways. And I think that's the reason that I became so fascinated by that type of stuff.
Can you share with us one of the scams that you came across?
One of the certainly the biggest scam that I was ever taken by. This was more of a long con than a short con. A short con is like something that takes place in a really short period of time, like minutes. But a long con is something that can take place over a long period of time. Weeks, potentially longer. Well, here's what happened to me. I was working for a mortgage company right out of college, and there were different real estate agents that we worked with. And this one real estate agent was he was kind of like a superstar real estate agent. Everybody was there, and he was such a big deal every time that he called or came into the office. And little by little, I got to know him, and then the girl, it's a very bizarre, weird sort of circumstance. But the girl that I had gone to college started working with him. So this girl that I knew from college was working with him, and I knew him through the company that I was working for. And so basically what ended up happening was, because people that I trusted were involved working with him, I trusted him, and an opportunity came up to invest in some real estate. So I took out a loan for $9,000 and gave it to this guy. And about 6 weeks later, he had left town.
Oh, man.
I know, straight up. I mean, granted, $9,000 isn't a whole lot of money for, like, if you're talking a lifetime and talking careers and stuff like that. But for like a 23-year-old guy who doesn't have any money and was like, ooh, this is an opportunity for me to start making some money. This is an opportunity to start becoming an investor. This is an opportunity to start having some business.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it knocks you down pretty good.
Man. So it was, is that the end of the story, or is there a happy ending?
The happy ending is that it became a major part of my Card Shark show. And
Okay,
it gave me really good.
Fair enough.
It gave me a really good story arc to.
Oh sure. Oh, absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. That's awesome. That's. Well, do you mention his name in the show just to warn other people?
I don't really know. I
Do
don't ever mention his
if you want to mention it here, I won't stop you. We do.
Yeah,
That's
it's way in the past at this
okay.
point.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, we have to take our first ad break, so sit tight for just a moment, Jason. Our guest tonight is Jason Michaels. You can check out more about him and his new book at jasonmichaels.com. You are or jasonmichaelsmagic.com. You are listening to Unreal Radio with me, Joe Diamond, here on AM 1050 WLIP.
Hi, this is Kim Carmichael. Frank and I are planning a great vacation, and we'd love it if you'd come along. We'll be heading out on November 7th, traveling to fabulous New York City, where we'll be staying at the historic Wyndham New Yorker Hotel. This hotel was once the tallest building in all of New York City. We'll visit the Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island, Central Park, Broadway. We've got a few surprises up our sleeve as well. Then we're off to relaxing Bermuda. We'll be staying at the luxurious Hamilton Princess Hotel, also known as the Pink Palace, on picturesque Hamilton Bay. Please call La Macchia Travel 262-656-8300.
Learn more about this great trip weekdays 1 to 3 during Happenings Q&A on AM 1050 WLIP.
AM 1050 WLIP Kenosha County Radar Weather. Brought to you by
Total Furniture. Open 4 to save you more. Highway 50 Kenosha.
Tonight, mostly to partly cloudy, a little bit of fog, 46 for your overnight low. As far as tomorrow, Monday, mostly sunny and warm, a high temperature of 70 degrees with thunder showers, though, by late afternoon and the evening. I'm today's TMJ4 meteorologist Mark McGinnis with weather twice an hour on Kenosha's radio station, AM 1050 WLIP.
You're listening to Unreal Radio, your weekly tour through the strange and mysterious. I am your host, Joe Diamond. Joining me tonight is magician and card shark Jason Michaels. You can find out more about him at jasonmichaelsmagic.com. And in the first segment, we were talking about how you came across this book called Card Shark. And I'm curious because it's a cliched question we get asked all the time. And even if you do the most basic of card effects, but I think there's usually a story or two that we're not always able to tell. But while you were learning all these card shark techniques, did you ever actually use them in a game? We'll just say it this way. Outside of a theatrical performance, we don't have to go into details. Just a simple yes or no will suffice. I'd ask the real questions here, Jason, the real questions.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because you learn these techniques and you think to yourself, I wonder if this would actually really work. And so I will say that on occasion, when it didn't benefit me in any way, shape, or form, I have practiced certain techniques in certain games.
Fair enough. I think that's a very diplomatic answer. I think that's fine. That is more than fine. Well, I wanted to lead this into here because I know I've talked with a lot of performers about misconceptions about magic and mystery entertainment in general. But what would you say from what you've learned? This is purely a personal taste on your end, but from learning from books like that and starting learning basically at a card table with your friends, what would you say is the biggest misconception when it comes to sleight of hand and card shark techniques?
The biggest misconception. Well, that's an interesting. I think the biggest misconception, probably from my perspective, is that people who know this stuff won't share it with you. Because when I was young, I firmly believed, hey, magicians tell you that they're not going to share their secrets. You can't go ask a magician how he performed his trick. But what I learned, and like I mentioned earlier, I am or not so much anymore, but when I was younger, I was a somewhat shy person. I did, if I didn't feel worthy of the information, I wasn't going to walk up to a magician. But what I learned over time is that if you have any real interest in this type of stuff, and you just show just a little bit of effort, I know a lot of magicians that would be thrilled.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of really good performers that would be happy to offer some knowledge, whether it's learning a new technique or helping you with something you're already working on. And so, for me, I think that there were probably several years that I could have shortened the learning curve a bit if I had reached out to some people and been willing to say, yes, I know that you've been in magic 20 years and you probably know this trick I'm getting ready to do, but let me show it to you anyway. If I had just been willing to just do it instead of, being worried that everybody knew what I was going to do, I guess that's probably the other misconception, is there's a misconception among magicians that every magician is already going to know what you're going to do. So it's like most magicians feel guilty about performing for other people that have any interest in magic at all, because they think, well, if I know this knowledge, everybody else must know this knowledge as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think that, that people think, oh, you must, yeah. Oh, yeah. Again, I'd hate to play cards with you. Like, yeah, no. Or like, oh, why don't you just go to Vegas? It's like, because they have 50 of me looking for me.
Looking for me.
Yeah. It's like, that's why. Like, that's the short answer. Now, the other thing, too, I mean, and your work, and I've been a fan of your work for a while, because you've put out a video on magic with cootie catchers a while ago,
right,
which is, as we talked about before, is a bit of an overlap, because David Parr and I put together a piece with a cootie catcher, and it actually is going to be, it's in one of his books, but it's going to be on his Penguin lecture coming up, his version.
Oh.
And so we've talked a bit about that, and I also you had me come out and lecture for your group when I was in Nashville last, and it was an absolute blast. And this is where I was getting at from before, you gave me something at that lecture.
What did I do?
Do you remember what you gave me at the lecture?
Yeah, no, I mailed it to you because.
You had one, and then you mailed one to me. That's right. That's right.
That's right. Right.
We can say as long as we use historical terms, we can say what they are. They were prostitution tokens.
Yes, I had found. Where did I find these? I remember. I was in Vegas, and I was at the Gamblers General store, and they had these at the checkout. And I was looking, and they're these. They look like they're sort of bronze-ish little coins about the size of a $50.
Yeah, brass. Some of them are in brass. Yeah. Some of them are bronze.
Yeah, brass. Yeah. And oh man, I wish I had one laying around here right now. I don't think I do. I don't see it, but yeah, that's what it was. Like apparently you couldn't. I guess in order to get around the laws of like paying someone for that whole, relations and favors and
yes.
stuff like that. It was what they did was they purchased these coins from the. Because I even bought a book on this. Like I bought the little perfect bound history book, and so they purchased it from the bartender. And then they would give it to the their lady of choice, and that lady would cash those into the
bartender. Yeah, exactly.
just like in Vegas, where when you go to the casino, put your money down, they give you chips, and you at the end, that's how you get your money back. You have to cash in your chips. So.
Yes. So you sent me one of these. I now have probably around 20.
This became like a
they have been following me. They've been following me. I literally picked up a box at an antique mall while on a trip with my girlfriend and just opened it, and there were tokens in there. I was like, really? They weren't even showing. It gets better. It gets better, Jason. So I'm not going to go into any details. We'll say this. I was doing my show, and I was doing a very classic duct tape blindfold mentalism stunt.
Right.
And so I'm duct taped up, and people can give up any objects, and I'll do kind of a reading, describe not only what the object is, but other aspects of the object, do a reading on them through, various, some would call it cold reading. I don't consider it that, but it's, it's. So I'm going through the routine. Yeah, it's intuitive, and I'm making some leaps that, are not tricks. They're genuine leaps. Sometimes they land, sometimes they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this particular performance for a company event involved a sugar packet off one of the tables. Okay, not that great. The second item was a bullet.
Oh, that's cool.
And the final item between the guy's hands was one of these tokens.
that is, I've never even seen one of these things until a couple of years ago. That is ridiculous. I don't even understand how that
So
could
here's
happen
the
to
thing. I also have been doing some research. So we'll just say I'm gonna be very careful how I phrase this. But when I knew a lot about this item
you. Right.
that I could say without, it's how could he know this? It's so obscure and weird. And
Right.
I'm doing this and I'm thinking I've got 20 of these at home right now. So I go through the whole thing. And now here's the thing. I peel the blindfold off and I finally see this guy. I don't see who it is, but until the end, because he's got it clasped in his hands. And like when if I could have taken a picture of this guy, if I showed him to you right now, Jason, you'd be like, oh yeah, I mean, vest, one of those cowboy bolo ties, like he looked like what's that guy from The Big Lebowski, that actor who had the Southern voice. He's in a bunch of shows. He looked like that guy, like he had just come from a Wild West show, but it was a company event, and so I was like, at first. I, of course, play off, it's this is money of some kind, and he gets a big smile on his face. He's like, nope. And at that point, I'm like, okay, well, it's not money anymore because this has to be a brass prostitution token. And his jaw hits the floor, and he holds it up, and people are like, what? And he says, he now explains what this is to everyone.
Oh, Lord.
As I'm going back up to the stage, and he explains what it is. He sits down, and I look at him. I go, Bill, I don't think it's valid anymore. I think that might have expired.
I bet you brought the place.
Oh yes,
down
it
to
did.
the knees.
It did. It was so. Because again, like once. It is hard to figure it out, and I don't want to. There's more I can go into off the air as well. But again, I don't even really need to have to as a fellow performer. When you see when you see something. But a lot of people don't realize as performers, we do have kind of an intuition. We do see where things are going before the audience does, and we have to do a really good job of holding on to that until it's time to reveal it or say it or deliver the joke or the punchline or anything else.
Right.
So it was just one of those things. So I was just like, yeah, okay, this is what happens when you just are given something random and you're like, again, don't know why this kept happening. I kept finding these at different places, and
There's got to be a reason for that. There has to be a weird, crazy reason that these things keep popping into your life. That is bizarre.
I'm sure part of it is noticing it. I mean, I probably walked by a lot of them in antique malls before you told me what they were. I'm sure that's part of it. It's similar to the phenomena like when you buy a new car, you suddenly start seeing that car everywhere. I think it's just that you're not processing that until you're in that headspace. Sure. But at the same time, like, for it to come up in an antique mall is one thing, because that's where they kind of go to die on one level. But to be given it during a show.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So thank you. Thank you.
Yep, you're very welcome. Glad that I could give a tiny little bit of participation in that.
So yeah. Now, you were talking, I don't know, you don't have to go into details here, but I mean, it seems like because we talked about like being interested in these weird old objects, and again, that does kind of tie into saloons and that sort of old school world of the card shark. But like, have you found outside influences like that influencing the work as well?
Influencing like the card shark show.
Well, that or your performance in general. Because I know we were talking, and I'll be honest, to this day, I still haven't come up with a presentation or a routine for them. But I know we were kind of talking about some of the possibilities of that because they are a little bit bigger than the normal sized coin and take on a different story and vibe and such.
I just try to stay open to interesting stuff. I am always looking for inspiration when I'm working, and sometimes inspiration comes in a song, sometimes it comes in just an idea or a joke every now and then, and sometimes you just stumble across something and you go, this is so cool. Like when you mentioned my cootie catcher, the DVD that I put out about that, it was a conversation that I was having with some friends, and we were talking about cootie catchers and love letters and stuff like that being a kid, and I was like, oh my, and it just reminded me. I love that nostalgia. I love that, being
Mm-hmm.
reminded of childhood, and I thought to myself, I remember those things. Those things were awesome. And I thought
Yeah.
that's such a unique item that, part of being a performer, at least in my opinion, you want to be, certainly you want to be entertaining, but you can be entertaining in so many different ways. And to me, I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I can introduce an object that grabs people's attention immediately because the object itself is interesting. So the cootie catcher, or some people know it as a fortune teller. It's the little toy that
Mm-hmm.
you fold up from a piece of paper and that you open and close it, and it looks like a little. Anyway, that
Mm-hmm.
thing, almost everybody remembers that from their childhood. It's
Yeah.
something that I can literally take that out of my pocket or whatever, open it up, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, I remember that." And so
Yeah.
I haven't done anything, but I've
Yep.
already got them on my side. So like with the coin that we're talking about, that's such a unique item, and people look at it and they're like, "What is this?" And then
Oh.
it's project, and people are,
Oh. Hang
"What
on.
is?"
Hang
And
on
then when
one
you tell
second.
them what it is,
Hang on, Jason. Go back just a little bit. You did cut out there for a moment. Something's happening
okay,
with the Wi-Fi here. It's
that's
it's,
okay.
it's on this
I
end. So just
said
go back again.
I said yeah, sure. I just said that the actual coin, because of the writing
Mm-hmm.
of what is written on it, when people are looking at it, they're looking at it because it's this weird object, and they can tell that it's something strange. It's because it says BJ's Saloon or what. I mean, it can say
Or
all sorts of
something
different.
very racist and very sexist on it, which we cannot
Absolutely.
go into. But some of the
Yeah. Oh,
language
absolutely.
choices on these tokens are not always the most PC. Like we can say
Well,
that.
yeah, but back when they were using them a
Oh
hundred
yeah.
years ago, it was very normal. But
Oh yeah.
I think my point is that anytime you can introduce an object that will grab attention, you've already got, like, you've half of the battle is won.
Yeah. Oh
At
yeah.
that
Oh,
point.
I'll admit this. This isn't tipping too much real work. I've used it a couple times, not a whole lot recently, but I don't even really use a cootie catcher for an effect. I actually
Sure.
have one that I can print up that just has funny, goofy fortunes on it that I
Yeah.
can just go up to people and say, "Hey, would you like your fortune told? I need a device," and take it and just do it. And it's a gag and it's funny. And David Parr had a great gag for one of them. One of the fortunes is that creepy clown followed you home. Which so it's kind of fun, like to have to see which weird fortune people are getting, and there's not even an
Sure.
effect happening at that point. Now, again, I mean,
But you are being entertaining.
yes, exactly. Now, I think the other aspect of this too, and I'm segueing this into into your book because I mean, being entertaining, performing, I mean, the subtitle of the book is how you overcame Tourette's syndrome with all of this. Now, I'll be the first to admit, just learning sleight of hand on its own is difficult. Is very, very difficult. I can't imagine how much harder anyone else has to work. Like a good mutual friend of mine is Madi Gilbert, who's the magician with no hands, who still does amazing sleight of hand, ironically, with no hands. And it's just like, whenever I worked at a magic shop and heard people say, it's too hard, or I'm not a visual learner, or my hands aren't big enough, and everything else, I just want to sit them down and be like, no, be quiet. You got to put in the work. So, I mean,
Right.
and we're going to talk more about the book in the next hour, but sort of give us a background. Do you think do you think that background has allowed you to see magic in a different way?
You know, that's a real. I don't think I've ever thought about it like
Mm-hmm.
that. I firmly remember the sensation, that true amazement and wonder that I had when I saw, the magician at the magic shop that I walked in perform a couple of things that he probably performed for every single person that walked into that magic shop. But I had never seen that stuff before. And I remember being so blown away. Then, and what was interesting was I had this just true feeling of wonder and amazement. And then the very next thought, and I remember this, it's a weird thing, but I remember I thought to myself, why have I never seen this before? And I have to make sure other people do see this. So it was almost like that feeling of amazement was so strong in me from having that experience that I was going to learn something. I wanted to share that feeling with other people. So that for me, I mean, it's never really been about trying to fool someone as much as it has been about trying to give them a really unique experience, an extremely unique feeling, a sensation of amazement and wonder. So that I have no interest in trying to make somebody feel foolish or anything like that. That's never been. I don't even like using the word trick because it kind of supposes that you're being tricked. Although we all know what a magic trick is, but still, the idea is that I want them to have this incredible experience. So, as far as the Tourette's go and me learning magic, I never really thought about it, to be honest with you. I just was so on fire for magic and so on fire for performing. It was just a very odd thing for me that I had.
I think that's the important thing, though. You weren't worried about what you were told you couldn't do, or worrying about that. You were just so in awe of this and saw the target and just sort of zoned in on that. And I think that's the really inspiring thing already, and so we haven't even really gotten into the meat of all this as well. Now, before I don't want to cut this off, we got about 8 minutes until top of the hour news. But I do want to make sure people know, once again, that the title of the book is You Can Do the Impossible Too, how one man overcame Tourette's syndrome to become an acclaimed professional magician, and how you too can live your biggest, boldest life. We'll start off from here. I mean, again, people can go to jasonmichaelsmagic.com to get the book. It drops Tuesday, correct? On the 23rd?
It does. Oh, you know what's really cool about that?
What's that?
If you do drop by the website and on the 23rd and the 24th, I'm giving away the ebook.
Oh, really? Oh, the ebook. Wow.
So the actual physical book, if you want a book, you have to purchase it.
Yeah.
But if you just want the ebook, on Tuesday and Wednesday, it's a gift.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
So the only way to get that is either to go to the website on Tuesday or Wednesday, or to go before then and just drop your name and email address in.
Perfect.
I'll send an email to you and make sure that you get your free book.
Doing that right now.
Sweet.
Now. So you got at least one.
I got one more.
Yes. Email address, david@davidcopperfield.com. Wait, what?
There you go.
Yeah, nice. Exactly. So that's amazing. And I will admit, I do appreciate ebooks, of having them on my tablet and being able to carry them and everything else. But there's nothing quite like having that actual physical book in your hands.
I'm a book person. I like to have it. Yeah.
Yes. I will very often get both. Very, very often. I'll do both. But I mean, especially, okay, so it says thank you. I'm submitted, and so you can get I got the book for free, and so can you, and you can too.
There you go.
You can do the impossible too, and you can do the impossible too for free too. Anyway, say that 5 times fast.
Exactly.
So go check that out. That's awesome. That's really, really awesome. Real quick, so that's wonderful. Again, go to jasonmichaelsmagic.com. I also put a link on the Unreal Radio Show Facebook page for everyone listening on there. But in the last 5 minutes of this first hour, sort of give us, you don't have to give us the whole overview of the book, but what would you say is like the elevator pitch of the book?
The elevator pitch of the book is that as a kid growing up with Tourette syndrome, which basically manifests itself with what doctors refer to as tics, and a tic is simply a rapid, repetitive, uncontrollable movement or vocalization. So that a lot of time the movements look like twitches. Sometimes they're really large. Sometimes they're very small. Sometimes they happen and you wouldn't even
Uh-oh, hang on.
vocalizations. For some people,
Oh,
the vocalization.
Hey,
Sorry. Oh,
sorry, we
all right.
cut out again. Sort of go back a little bit again. Sorry
Okay.
about that. I don't know why the Wi-Fi keeps cutting out like that. But
it's
go ahead.
No
Go ahead.
problem. No problem.
So, yeah, go ahead.
The movements come across the uncontrollable movements come across all the time as twitches, and some of those twitches are really large. They can be huge. They can be very, an entire arm flailing around. Sometimes they come across as very small. Sometimes you wouldn't even notice them. The vocalizations will sometimes be like clicking noises with your tongue in your mouth, or clearing your throat, there's so many different ways that you can have someone with Tourette syndrome can have a Tourette syndrome tic. Now, the one thing that most people with Tourette's, thing that most people think about when they hear Tourette's is they think about people that swear uncontrollably, which is a really small portion of the population. But as far as the book goes, the idea that I had this weird neurological disorder and that I'm probably the last person that it made any sense whatsoever to step out onto a stage as a high school junior. When we're in high school, really the last thing that you're trying to do is stand out from everybody else. Now, you may want to be noticed for like being the quarterback, or you may want to be the best this or the best that, but you don't want to be made fun of. So you're just trying to kind of blend in with your friends. And so it's sort of a strange, it's not something I think that anybody would probably counsel someone with Tourette syndrome. Oh, hey, here's an idea. Why don't you go stand up on a stage where there's a white hot spotlight, so that if you do have a bunch of tics, or if you do have a bunch of vocalizations or movements, everybody can see that. So that's kind of more or less what, in a real sort of a nutshell, that kind of encapsulate part of the title behind the book. Of course, the book itself, I go into just a lot of depth about a bunch of incredible adventures that I've had as a magician. And so, because part of it is you can do the impossible, talking about, being a kid with Tourette syndrome, becoming a professional entertainer. The other side of you can do the impossible is the fact that I'm a professional magician, and professional magicians do the quote unquote, the impossible all the time. Every time we go perform, we're doing the impossible, quote unquote. So, I talk about getting to go tour with Brett Daniels in China and working for him for several years. And I get to talk about attacking the Chinese water torture cell and performing that in front of a couple of thousand people on live television. I talk about let's see here, doing a TED talk in Chattanooga, TEDx talk in Chattanooga, where it's the very first time I had really talked about Tourette syndrome, and I just, for some strange reason, thought it would be a great idea to do it for an event that was going to be broadcast all over the internet. I talk about all those crazy adventures.
Awesome. Well, that's amazing, and we can get into more of those crazy adventures after Top of the Hour News. What people can do while listening to the wonderful sponsorship and listening to Top of the Hour News from CBS is everyone can go to jasonmichaelsmagic.com, and there's a tab that says the book, and just click on that and sign up, and you will be sent a I believe it says you'll get a code, for an Amazon code for the book. For the ebook. Awesome. Very, very cool. So yeah, you guys can get this. There's no excuse. Just get it for free and read it and do that. And of course, pick up a hard copy as well. I mean, once it's available and everything else. And we want to support you. But I think it's really cool doing a release like that the day, and that's only for the day of and the day after, correct?
Normally it's the ebook is like $10, but
Gotcha.
I thought it would be a great way to. I want this to get out there, because I think the book is very inspirational, and I want to share that message of hope with people. It's a fun read, but it's also an inspirational read, and I want to share it with as many people that want to read it.
Absolutely. Well, hope everyone out there reads it. We're going to go into top of the hour news. Again, go to jasonmichaelsmagic.com. We'll be back with Jason in just a moment.
Celebrating 70 years of live and local radio for Kenosha. This is AM 1050 WLIP, Kenosha. It's 9 o'clock. Now, CBS News.
CBS News, I'm Pam Coulter. President Trump is resetting his approach to the Muslim world. In a speech in Saudi Arabia, he cast aside his harsh campaign rhetoric to appeal to Arab leaders to help fight terrorism.
Speaking to his counterparts from more than 50 Muslim nations, including at least 4 affected by his travel ban, President Trump urged them to do their fair share to drive out terrorists.
Our goal is a coalition of nations who share the aim of stamping out extremism.
He didn't use the phrase radical Islamic terror, which was a hallmark of his campaign speeches, and he maintained a subdued tone throughout.
Just imagine what tomorrow could bring.
Stephen Portnoy, CBS News, with the president in Riyadh.
The president's next stop is Tel Aviv. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Mr. President, we look forward to your visit. The citizens of Israel will receive you with open arms.
That despite reports that Mr. Trump shared classified information obtained from Israel with Russian diplomats. The president's more than 6,000 miles away from Washington, but the controversy over his firing of FBI Director James Comey is hard to escape.
I'm Tom Foti. Republican Senator Marco Rubio agrees recent reports about James Comey's firing and related matters do need a close look, like the hearing now expected after Memorial Day.
These media reports that are out there raise questions that deserve answers, and we're going to get answers in a public forum.
His main questions for Comey.
What did the president say? Did, in fact, you keep memos? What do those memos say, and why did you write them?
Democrat Dianne Feinstein.
What I want to know from him is how many times did he meet with the president? What was he asked by the president?
Both are members of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Both appeared on Face the Nation. Tom Foti, CBS News, Washington.
Dozens of students and others got up and walked out as Vice President Mike Pence began his commencement address at Notre Dame today. WSB TV's Cassidy Williams.
It was not only students that left the stadium. Some were joined by their friends and family.
I feel very honored to have my family support, and I think that they are proud of me, and so that's all I could ask for.
I was a bit nervous. I did ask, do we have to? But I know her intentions. I'm just very proud of my sister. She's going to do great things, and I know it. And I hope she knows that I support her all the way.
Family members who walked out still got to see their graduates turn their tassels. It was just maybe a different background than they had originally expected.
Hundreds turned out for the opening of a park in Warwick, Rhode Island. It's dedicated to the victims of the 2003 Station nightclub fire. Governor Gina Raimondo.
My hope and my prayer is that this memorial can be a place of comfort and remembrance and healing. And I hope it can give you peace.
100 people died in the fire and more than 200 were injured. This is CBS News.
As a 300-foot-tall dino monster, people think all I'm good at is rampaging. But there's more to me than that. Just like Geico. Yeah, they could save you money, but they also have over 75 years of savings and service. So Geico is super good at insurance. And yeah, I like rampaging. But I'm also a huge fan of opera.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
This is Charles Osgood. Over 3 million businesses use Indeed.com for hiring, and independent research shows 5 times more hires are made through Indeed than any other job site. By creating the easiest, most effective hiring experience, Indeed helps businesses find great new people every day. Right now, Indeed is giving new users a $50 credit to post a sponsored job on the world's #1 job site. Claim your credit at Indeed.com/offer. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply.
When news breaks, follow AM 1050 WLIP on Facebook and Twitter. WLIP, streaming live at WLIP.com.
The LeafGuard gutter system is an amazing product that has 2 really important benefits. First off, LeafGuard's one-piece cover design sheds the leaves and debris, which keeps your gutter system free of clogs, so it can do its job to keep water away from your home, which helps prevent roof leaks and foundation damage. Secondly, LeafGuard keeps their homeowners off the ladder because they come with a lifetime no-clog warranty. If they ever do do clog, LeafGuard will unclog them for free. LeafGuard owners never, ever have to worry about cleaning clogged gutters again. Right now, Belden LeafGuard is offering 0 down and 0 interest for 6 months. Schedule your in-home estimate today, and they'll even throw in a $50 restaurant.com voucher. No purchase necessary. Call Belden LeafGuard today. 224-353-4060. That's 224-353-4060. Or for more information, go to gutterradiochicago.com. Financing available with minimum purchase and approved credit. Loans provided by Interbank USA. Interest waived if repaid in 180 days. 17.1% fixed APR effective March 2017. Subject to change.
AM 1050 WLIP Kenosha County Radar Weather. Brought to you by
Total Furniture. Open 4 to save you more. Highway 50 Kenosha.
Tonight, mostly to partly cloudy, a little bit of fog. 46 for your overnight low. As far as tomorrow, Monday, mostly sunny and warm. A high temperature of 70 degrees with thunder showers, though, by late afternoon and the evening. I'm today's TMJ4 meteorologist Mark McGinnis with weather twice an hour on Kenosha's radio station, AM 1050 WLIP.
You're listening to UnReal Radio, your weekly tour through the strange and mysterious. I am your host, Joe Diamond. Thank you once again for joining me tonight on Sunday, May 21st, 2017. Tonight's guest is magician and author Jason Michaels. If you go to jasonmichaelsmagic.com and sign up, put in your name and email, you will be emailed on the date of the release of his book. You will be emailed the code to download the book for free for that day. So definitely get on board with that, because this has been amazing already. Just talking with you tonight, Jason. And but before the last break, you just casually dropped, I don't know, doing a water torture cell escape in front of thousands of people, like you do. But I say that because, okay, let me back up a little bit. I've had a lot of interesting showbiz and non-showbiz folks on the show, like weird stuff, sword swallowing, UFO hunting, cryptozoology hunting, his history, a lot of weird, odd stuff. However, even amongst this little clan of weirdos, there are some things we look at and go, oh God, no thank you. And one of them is popularized by Houdini, the Chinese water torture chamber. Right. First of all, for anyone out there listening who has not heard of it, I mean, if you haven't heard of it, you've seen it, but sort of describe it for people who might not know what the stage presentation is.
So the water torture cell, it looks like a phone booth, except it just doesn't have doors that open out into the street. It's just a large upright glass cabinet. You can see into it. You enter the torture cell from the top, the way that Houdini did it, and the way that I performed it, and the way most, and there are not a lot of people who have done it, but the way most people have done it is you have a top stocks, a set of stocks that your ankles get locked into and then secured, and it is raised by a chain motor or some sort of mechanism that raises the stocks up into the air, and as the stocks get raised into the air, you get raised up into the air. So your feet are locked, your ankles are locked into the stocks. Your body is hanging below, upside down, and you're raised up, 6-8 feet in the air. The torture cell itself is positioned. Let's just say it's about a 6 foot tall, skinny, cell that looks sort of like a phone booth, and then you are lowered head first, so that your head is going toward the ground. You're lowered until all the way in until the stocks get locked to the outside of the water torture cell, so that you are every part of your body, except basically for your feet, which are locked into the stocks, and they can still see your feet on the outside, but every other part of your body is locked into the cell underwater.
Mm-hmm. And it's I don't think, a lot of people say, the bullet catch, it killed this many people and everything. But people never really go into the details of how difficult the stunt is. First of all,
Right.
It is insanely difficult, and it's one of the more dangerous things. Like, there are ways of doing. We'll say, for example, the bullet catch, and I'm not speaking out of school when I say this. Penn and Teller pride themselves on saying their version is insanely safe. There's no danger. There's no this. There's no that, and everything else. So, yes, there are versions of the effect that have been dangerous in the past, but their version they claim is very safe. There's not really. I don't want to say there's not a safe way of doing the torture chamber, but there's pretty much only one way to do it. I mean, you got to put in the practice and everything else, but like, there's no way to cheat it. You either do it or you don't.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah, no, it's true.
Like, people are like, because I've heard people say ridiculous things like, oh, they have a hidden oxygen tank, and there's this, and it's like. Or it's like when I worked at Six Flags Great America, I did street performing there, and I worked with the people who were in like the Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck costumes and everything. And people are always like, oh, there's a fan in there. Oh, there's an air conditioner in there. It's like, no, there is not.
Yeah,
no.
They're just being tortured. Yep, you're right. You're right.
So, okay, first of all, let's start at the beginning. How did you get into doing this? Because you don't just wake up and go, oh, I'm going to do this at the corporate event on Sunday.
No, that's very true. I actually go. There's a couple of chapters on this because it was such a huge part of. This was a big deal for me. So I was back in Nashville after having worked for Brett Daniels, who's just a fantastic illusionist, just a great illusionist, and he's a friend of mine. And I had worked for him for several years, and now I was back in Nashville, and I was working to really kind of get my name out there. And I was trying to figure out how to spread the word, how to get people interested in hiring Jason Michaels as a magician. Well, the one thing I knew, having been involved in theater and having worked for Brett Daniels, I knew how to do a stage show. And so what I started doing is I just wrote and created my own stage show. I didn't at the time know how to get people to hire me for private events. I didn't know how to get corporate events. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff, but I did know how to produce a stage show. And so I started doing local shows, renting out small theaters, doing everything, doing all the stuff that a producer has to do to get people to come see a show. Well, one of the things that I knew that I had to do was I had to find ways of getting press, because press will get people to your shows, but it will also help you develop a press kit, which is good to show agents, potential people who could hire you for other things.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah. So my friend John and I decided to approach a local mall here, which was pretty brand new. It maybe had been open a couple in 2 years, maybe a year, and it was Opry Mills Mall. And we approached them and said, we'd like to. We created an event called the Houdini Challenge, and the idea was that I would perform 3 different of Houdini's tricks. So I was going to perform. I knew I was going to perform the needle swallowing that Houdini performed.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to perform his metamorphosis piece, and then I was hoping to perform the water torture cell. But I didn't have I didn't have a water torture cell. So what I did was we basically went to the mall and sold them on this idea, and they're like, this is awesome, we love this, let's do this. And then I had to go get a water torture cell. So I know I probably have never done anything the way it was supposed to be done. I always do things in a weird sort of way.
You saw my lecture. I was like, I sold the world's largest corn maze to let me solve it blindfolded. I left that meeting, called my friend Dave. I was like, I'm gonna do it October 1st. He's like, great. So how are you going to do it? No idea. Let's start working on it.
Yeah. That's sometimes the best way to do stuff. But what I did know was that Brett had a water torture cell. So I did something that I was a little uncomfortable doing. I called him up and I asked him, I said, hey, I'd like to perform the water torture cell, and would you be willing to letting me, come and get it from you. And we worked something out, and he was extremely just, you know, Brett was a hero of mine. I mean, when I said that I grew up on David Copperfield way earlier, an hour ago, I also grew up on Brett Daniels, because Brett Daniels was doing all the World's Greatest Magic specials every year. And
I think him and Matt King are the ones who are on all 5. I think they were the two who were on all 5 of the NBC's World's Greatest Magic series.
So he was like he was a hero to me. Even when I was working for him, I was still like, there was some hero worship going on. And so basically, and even when I called him and I said, "Hey, I'd like to do this water torture cell. Can I get this from you?" That took a lot. It took a lot for me to do that. I was very uncomfortable doing that, because I was thinking to myself, oh, why would he do this? But I was desperate enough, and I knew that I needed the business badly enough. And Brett was so cool. He was just like, he trusted me because I had worked for him for a while in different situations. And he said, he talked to me for a long time, and he explained to me some elements that you just don't know about unless you've done it to yourself. There's things that you have to be aware of, some dangers and some things that people don't realize. And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And so he let me use that for the Houdini challenge at Opry Mills Mall, which was done on Halloween. And so,
cool.
To go with the anniversary of Houdini's death, I really found it was a timely hook. So I did everything that they tell you to do when you're, doing publicity and stuff like that. So you know what? Hey, let me
real quick.
Okay,
well, before you do that, hold that thought for one moment. I'm just going to say this once, real quick. Yes, the name of your book is You Can Do the Impossible Too. That said, we do not recommend you get a water torture chamber.
Yeah, in the book, I say don't do this.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and do not reflect the opinions of AM 1050, other hosts, or any of its advertisers. Okay, so that's back out of the way.
You got that out of
Just wanted to say it once more, just to be sure.
It's funny, because I actually talk about that in the book. In the chapters, I say, do not do this. This was not a good idea.
Even if you, I don't know if you ever saw the old Rudy Kobe specials. He had a bit where he was doing like a spoof of like David Copperfield dangerous stunts on TV, and the actor looks at the camera and says, "I want to say something very quickly to the children at home. Even if your parents are insanely wealthy and can afford to build this exact death trap for you in your backyard, don't limit yourself to just 30 seconds to escape. We're pushing it here because television airtime is so precious." And
Yeah. Oh, it's true.
So you were gonna say something else. Go ahead.
Yes, I was gonna. You know what I'm gonna do here? If it's okay with you, I'm gonna read like a page and a half.
Oh, please do. Go right ahead. And again, I know I keep saying it, but just in case people are just tuning in, go to jasonmichaelsmagic.com, click on the book, and you can get a copy, the ebook version of the book for free on its release date on Tuesday. So you're going to be reading from that book right now.
So I'm going to read from the book, and I'm going to read from one of the chapters talking about the water torture cell. And just to kind of preface it so you understand, I didn't have, for a long time, I've just been bootstrapping so much, just trying to find ways to create the biggest impact. And so I didn't have a rehearsal hall. I didn't have a like a warehouse or anything like that. I had my parents' garage. So that brings you up to speed on, and I'm going to read about a page and a half.
Okay.
Here we go.
Ready
we go.
for it.
Okay. Because my parents' garage was a normal garage, rehearsals were absolutely nothing like what an actual performance was going to be like. The best I could do was try to simulate what it would be like for real. In reality, my rehearsals were a far cry from an actual performance. When I rehearsed with Aaron and Fred, Aaron would position a ladder next to the cell for me to climb. I would climb up the ladder, and in a makeshift dive, I would enter the cell head first. Once I was fully immersed with my head at the bottom of the cell and my legs sticking out at the top, Aaron would hold my legs in place while he and Fred put the top on and lock my legs into the stocks so that I couldn't move. And after all of that, finally, I could practice the escape. To an outsider, I probably would have looked like a complete nut or like I was on my way to a watery grave in front of a live audience. The simple truth is that when I attempted to escape for real on Halloween, I wouldn't be dealing with any of that craziness. I would just be lowered into the cell head first by a chain motor hung from the ceiling of the mall. But for now, this was my reality. About 3 days before the date for the Houdini challenge, Aaron, Fred, and I were in my parents' garage, and I had just dived into the cell. As Aaron and Fred locked my legs into the stocks, I repositioned my head, and a small amount of water got into my nose and forced me to cough. Here's a tip for you. Try not to cough when you're being held upside down underwater. that, that cough made me swallow a large gulp of water and start to choke. I naturally started to fight with Aaron and Fred as they started to lock me into the leg stocks. Fortunately, I worked my way out of the cell without any further incident, but to add insult to injury, my dad pulled his car into the other side of the garage right as this incident happened. So, here's what my dad saw. His son, submerged upside down in a water torture cell, fighting to get free from two of his buddies who were holding him in place. And once his son got free of the cell, he was coughing and hacking like his buddies had just tried to drown him. So, yeah.
Well, it's funny because I've told this story before on the air, so I'll make it quick. But when I was 13, I was working on the mailbag escape with my mentor, who had a shop on one of the busiest highways in between Illinois and Wisconsin. It's like right on the border. And so all afternoon we'd practice outside in the shop because it was the only place cool enough to get in and out of the airbag. And afterwards we realized, wow, not one person called DCFS while we're shoving this kid into a mailbag and like on next to one of the busiest highways.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know my mom. My mom listens to every show, so I know she's listening, and I know she.
There you go.
She was. I know she was charmed by that little exchange. So I'm on the edge of my seat, Jason. I want to know. Did you live? Did you make it through the escape? I don't know. We'll have to read the book to find out, right? Dang it!
That's right.
Oh, dang it! Curses! But that's amazing. That's really amazing. How old were you when you did this?
How old was I? I was probably 27. Wait, no, wait, hold on. That would have been in. Let me think. No, I was probably. That was in 2003, maybe.
Oh, wow. So 14, 15 years ago.
Yeah, it was like 14 or 15. Yeah, it may have been in 2004. But yeah,
Okay.
it was a while ago.
Wow. That's amazing. That's really, really cool. And hot tip, don't start choking on water when you're upside down in a water tank.
Yes.
That's a great tip.
Bad idea.
So no, spoiler alert, you are here with us. It went well, it seems. Now, so that said, so this sounds like it was a pretty big success overall.
Yeah, what was cool is that so what happened was that I sent some press releases to the local news stations, and I got a phone call like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock or something like that, and it's one of the producers for one of the local news stations. And he's like, "We're going to send out a crew because we want to get some shots of this for the evening news." And I was like, "Cool." So I met them at the mall, and I'm talking to the guy, and he does an interview, and he shoots some video of the torture cell, and he says, "This will be on the 4 o'clock news or the 5 o'clock news or whatever." He says, "When are you planning on doing this?" I said. And I was thinking, I wonder why he's asking me that question. I said, we're going to start the Houdini challenge around 6-ish. Why? Did you have a specific time that would be good for us to do it? And he was like, well, let me get back to you on that. So he basically called the producer and said, hey, we might, we could do this. We could shoot this thing live. So what ended up happening is I timed it with them so that I would be hanging upside down, just barely inches above the water, right as the news, as the producer cut to this guy live at Opry Mills Mall.
Wow.
So basically, I got dumped. I'm sitting there. I get dumped into the water torture cell, and then the news is stuck on that shot. They can't leave that shot.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
can't
that's
leave that shot
amazing.
until after I escape. So it's like 2.5 minutes of me in this water
Wow.
torture cell, and the guy's narrating the whole thing, and he's telling the story about Houdini that I had told him earlier the day. You know, It was cool. Yeah, it was cool.
Oh, that's so awesome. That is so awesome. That's wonderful. That's a home run right there.
Oh, it was huge.
Now, that said, I asked this of all my performer friends. Anyone who's been in the business has experienced what we have dubbed on this show a hell gig. Gigs where things maybe didn't go the way they planned. Maybe there's a happy ending, and like you said before about being conned, maybe there isn't. But everyone I've had on the show has come on. Uri Geller talked about bombing on the Tonight Show. Todd Robbins talked about some grisly sideshow performances that he had to do. Do you have any? It can be anything from a large scale event to a kid's birthday to just doing a card trick for one person socially. If it's, again, people love the hell gig stories. I left them out once. I didn't ask one performer friend of mine on the show about a hell gig story, and I got letters, I got emails from people saying, "Hey, we want to hear more hell gig stories." So
I think my I am really attentive to the audience. Like, I'm really tuned in to the audience and the way they're responding, the way they're reacting. And so I have had shows where, like, okay, so I've had corporate shows, and anybody who does any corporate entertainment knows that there are going to be some I don't care who you are. There are just some audiences that just don't react. And it's just like, what am I am giving them everything I got. I remember several corporate shows where I was up there, and within about 90 seconds, I start sweating profusely because these people are not reacting to anything. I mean, I'm giving them jokes, I'm giving them energy, I'm trying to, and they're just, and the applause is very muted, and what's crazy about that is that after the show, people were coming up to me going, "Oh my God, that's the best show we've ever had," and I'm just like, "What are you talking about? That was the worst show I've ever done in my life." But it wasn't because I wasn't trying to give them a good show. I was giving them the best show I could. But because there was like very little reaction, I was so unnerved, and it just made it just absolutely horrific for me. I mean, I would just be completely dehydrated because because my body would just be sweating so much. Now, I will tell you this: I did when I was producing my own shows at the very, very, very beginning, I had produced a show in a little community not far from my home, and it had gone well. It had gone for a weekend, and it had gone well. So I then rented a theater at a community college, and I was a little bit, and it sat like 450 people, and I was a little, and and I'm doing some illusions, and I'm doing some stuff, and it's an actual stage show, but I'm a little bit maybe aggressive in how well I think it's going to be attended. So I schedule a matinee and an evening show, and the matinee had 5 people there, and that was tough. That was tough. 2 of them were my parents. 2 of them were my church pastor and his wife, and the other one may have been my sister. I can't remember. But I remember everyone was sitting right next to each other, all 5 of them, and the whole place is empty. And I'm like, all right, we're just going to do a 75-minute show or however long it was, and we're going to give them the best dang show they've ever seen. So it was brutal. I tell you another brutal one I did. I did a brutal show last year where the audience was fantastic as far as the people that I was working for. I was doing a show, and I was in Iraq, and I do a lot of shows. I was doing a lot of shows. I love, one of my favorite things to do is to do shows for the military. So I was in Iraq.
Wonderful.
And we were at this base. And the problem was that they had the only time that they could schedule this show, and I don't know the reasons why. I just know that they told us the only time they could schedule this show was at like 3:00 in the afternoon. Well, most of the people on the base are working at 3:00 in the afternoon. So and then the people who aren't are probably asleep because they're going to be working at nighttime. And so we're in this cafeteria, and we probably had, the place probably could have sat easily 400 people probably, but there were just a handful of people. And not only were there not only just a handful of people, there were a handful of people spread out in the entire room. So
Oh, man.
you're working for that guy over there, and then for the two people who are over here. And so now they were so appreciative. But when you're in a situation like that, as a performer, you really respond to energy. You give the audience energy. The audience gives you back energy through laughter, through applause, and stuff like that. And that energy really keeps you going through the show. It lets you. That feedback is so important. But anytime you perform for a small audience, and they can be a genuinely wonderful audience. If you're performing for a small audience in a big room, the energy just gets sucked out of the room because there's just this vast space, and you just don't, and so I love doing those shows. So I'm not trying to say it was a bad show, but it's a hard show to do a show like that.
Oh, absolutely. My good friend Christian Cadrigal, in one of he has a commencement speech he did for a graduating class, and he's like, one night you're performing a show for 5 people, 2 foreign tourists who don't speak any English, your parents, and a homeless guy who's falling asleep in the chair. It's great. If he's got it up online, it's a fantastic talk. But yeah, we've all done those shows. It's always been, it's like, oh my gosh, really? And it's always the shows it's always the shows parents come to. Like, that's the other thing. Like, it's never like, whenever there's like a really great show, I always am like, and I know my parents are coming the next night. I'm like, oh boy, tomorrow's going to be terrible. Like, I just know it. I know it in my bones. That's going to be the hard show. That's going to be the one, it's like standing ovation the night before, but when they're okay, there we go. But oh man. Well, on that note, we are going to go into our last ad break, so stay on the line for just a moment, Jason.
Yeah,
Again, you guys, you can go to jasonmichaelsmagic.com and get a copy of his book for a digital copy of the book. You can do The Impossible 2 for free on the day it's released, only on the day it's released. So go to jasonmichaelsmagic.com, type in your email address and get that. It'll be well worth it. I assure you, more stories like we've been hearing tonight. We'll be right back with Jason Michaels. You're listening to Unreal Radio with me, Joe Diamond, here on AM 1050 WLIP.
AM 1050 WLIP Kenosha County Radar Weather. Brought to you by
For the finest in men's fashions, it's clearly S.J. Crystal.
At the corner of 57th Street and 6th Avenue in beautiful downtown Kenosha.
Tonight, mostly to partly cloudy, a little bit of fog, 46 for your overnight low. As far as tomorrow, Monday, mostly sunny and warm, a high temperature of 70 degrees with thunder showers, though, by late afternoon and the evening. I'm today's TMJ4 meteorologist Mark McGinnis with weather twice an hour on Kenosha's radio station, AM 1050 WLIP.
You're listening to Unreal Radio, your weekly tour through the strange and mysterious. I am your host, Joe Diamond. My guest tonight is Jason Michaels. Again, go to jasonmichaelsmagic.com. Click on the book to get a copy of You Can Do the Impossible 2. How one man overcame Tourette's syndrome to become an acclaimed professional magician, and how you too can live your biggest, boldest life. Now, Jason, we've talked a bit about Tourette's syndrome and how you've overcome it over your lifetime. But when did you first find out you had it?
Well, I would go so far as to say that technically, I use the word overcome it, sort of like overcoming major challenges, like overcoming things that people would say you can't do. So it's not like it's gone away. I still have it, and it's still I still have the tics and everything. So it's not like I healed myself or anything like that. It's like that's not what the title is referring to.
Yes.
But yeah, I first found out. Um, my first recollection of it was being a kid in the car and just having these movements that I couldn't stop doing, and it was very, very frustrating because I realized that I'd been doing it on and off, and it was my neck was starting to get irritated and red because I was rubbing my chin against my collarbone. It was really, really frustrating, and I just really felt I was upset about it. But I didn't really get. The doctor we saw. I remember seeing like some different doctors, but it took when I was young, when I was a kid, Tourette syndrome was. I mean, it had been around for a while, but I just don't think there were a lot of people seeing doctors, and I don't know how prevalent it was with doctors and stuff like that. I don't know how much it was studied regularly. I know that it's become very well known now, but I think I was probably about 13 years old before I finally got technically a real diagnosis of this is what it is, and here's some different treatments we can try. So yeah, I saw a pediatric neurologist, and and she was great. She was very nice. And so my parents started me and the doctor started me on some different medications, which is weird because there's not a medication that just fixes it. There's different medications that work for different people, and some of them, some of them don't work at all for anybody. But what's interesting is that you might take a medication and some of the twitches might stop, but then it's the side effects of the medication itself might be almost as bad or worse as the twitches. It's like, oh, geez.
Yeah. So it's like those. It's like those. We'll. I want to say male enhancement drug commercials online, but we'll just say, some, or we'll go with antidepressant ads. Like when they say the side effects, when they say like the side effect could be depression, it's like, wait a second. Wait, hold up. This sounds, could involve internal bleeding, this, that, meteor strike. It's like, wait, what? Wait, hold up.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, I don't think I need any medication that is going to do all of that. So, yeah. But yeah, no, it was just something that the Tourette's for me, I was really fortunate. I grew up in a family that just really supported me, and it was great. I just had a great support system, and I was very blessed like that. But I mean, of course, when you go out in the world, you go to school and stuff like that, and from time to time, you're going to have, when I had these different twitches and tics and vocal noises and stuff like that. I mean, most of the time people either didn't notice or they didn't say things, but that isn't to say that people haven't commented or made jokes about it or said hurtful things, because of course that's going to happen. That happens to kids for all sorts of reasons, and it just, you're just a little bit more of a target when you have sort of an odd disorder that makes people look at you like, what in the heck are you doing? It's not something when you're just going about your daily life and you're at the grocery store and then you see somebody having these weird, crazy movements and they're happening over and over again. And sometimes they're very big and it's like, what is going on with that dude? That is freaky. So it definitely grabs people's attention. And I mean, even to this day, I tell you what's weird, Joe. Here's what happened to me in my life. So, what most doctors tell kids is they say, listen, as you get older, the tics are going to go away, and they'll minimize, and then you may not even notice them at all by the time you're an adult. And that did happen to me to an extent. They just kind of minimized as I got older. But as I got into my 30s, for some reason, they started coming back, and I have no idea why. It wasn't like something changed all of a sudden, but this started becoming more and more, and it's not so severe that it like my life is out of control or anything like that. But sometimes I have a pretty good case of this stuff, and it really can be annoying to me and a little bit irritating. But I've kind of thought about that from time to time. Like, why in the world would this come back? It kind of went away. Why would it come back? And you know what? All I can figure is that I'm just supposed to be out there telling people about it, spreading the word, and then letting people know that deal with this type of stuff. That there's a lot of
Yeah.
hope, and it can be difficult, but it can also be lived with. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
not,
and
it's
also,
not the worst thing in the world.
also at least it doesn't seem to me that there's a lot of misinformation out there about it, but I think there's a lot of bad information out there about it.
Yeah, maybe.
And to be honest, I mean, like, I think the only solution to other people have said this, but the only solution to bad information is more information. And I think the more it's out there, I mean, again, I know a lot of, and I do know a fair amount of people who have some form of Tourette's. So there was never really like a stigma for it for me. And so like, but again, I never really quite knew what it was either. So I think a lot of that is just people, well, like you said, they either don't comment on it at all, or they just say, oh, that's weird, and move on. And now it's the weird thing. So they, rather than looking into it and finding out more information and knowing that, oh yeah, no, this person lives with it, but they've also achieved a lot of amazing things. Now, again, you said you did a TED talk about this and everything else. So let's for this last 20 minutes here, I kind of want to get into. Well, first of all, how did the book come about? Had you always been writing it? Were you approached? How'd that come about?
So okay, here. So I never wanted to talk about this. This is not something 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we wouldn't have this. I wouldn't have talked to anybody about it. I didn't even talk about it to anybody. I mean, my closest friends, it wasn't part of the conversation. I didn't want people talking to me, pointing it out. I didn't want it to be part of my identity. I certainly didn't want people to say, "Oh, you're a really good entertainer," especially since you've got this disorder and this, I didn't want that. I just wanted to be good at what I did because I was good at it. So I wanted to excel because I had talent and drive. I didn't want people to somehow feel sorry for me. That's never been my intent. But I have this I have this friend who is he's like a bulldog. When he lashes onto you, he's not going to let go until he gets his point across. My friend Stephen Bargatze is a very funny man, and he is a speaker. He goes out and he speaks to groups, and he shares his story, and he has a very unique story of dealing with some difficulties and whatnot. And it's a very powerful talk that he does. And he met me years ago, and I met him, and he has seen me with the different tics at different times in my life. And he, as we became friends, he started saying to me, you really need to go out and share this. This would help people get to know you better in your show. You should go out and talk about this. This would be really good. And I wouldn't hear it. I would not hear it at all. I was like, look, I'm not going to do that. It's not going to happen. But he just kept on to me. And he wasn't like incessant, but I mean, he just time to time would say, why you want to do this? You want to do it for this reason, or, ooh, you could use this and this would be great for you. And he just kind of constantly applied just a little bit of pressure. And so what kind of the thing that got me comfortable talking about it was that I went and I had seen him do his program many times. And then at one of the times that I was there watching him, there was just a bunch of people that came up to him afterwards and were telling him about how much that they appreciated what he had talked about and how he had just touched their lives. And I thought, wait a minute, this is what he's talking about. For me, entertainment is a way to touch people's lives anyway. It's a way to give them some fun, some laughter, some amazement, some, all that. And so when I saw that and I realized that what he was talking about was this was an opportunity for me to connect with people on a level that I couldn't connect with them any other way, that's when I finally said, okay, I get it. I will make this I will be willing to talk about it. I will make it, and it took me a long time to do it, but I've made it a part of my show. Now I go out and I speak to groups, and sometimes I'm doing a show and then speaking, and other times I'm speaking and I incorporate a little bit of entertainment into it. But if it wasn't for Stephen, and then if it wasn't for me finally opening up to the idea of discussing it and sharing some of my experiences about what it's like to live with it, I never in a million years would have written a book. That just wouldn't have happened. So the book came around because I just kind of constantly record ideas, things that I think might be a good idea, just kind of record them in a document. And one day I was looking through the document and I realized, hang on, you almost have the outline of a book here. And I was like, wait a second, let me sit down and really mess around with this. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, this is all, if I sit here and I flush it out a little bit more, I would have, I've got this story and I've got this story and I've got this story and I've got this story. And then all of a sudden, after playing around with it and writing and working on that outline, all I had to do was kind of fill in all the details. Now that's a lot of writing, but these were stories that I had lived. So it was just figuring out how to best phrase it and best put it on paper.
That's amazing. That's really, really cool. And quick side note too, Stephen Bargatze is like probably one of the. I hate to say underrated because he's wonderful and he does so much, but like I think so. He again, I mean, he is on the level of the best of the best of the best in our industry.
Right.
He did a show with his son at Magi Fest this last year, and I was on the literally on the floor laughing till I was crying.
Yeah, he's that good
at this stuff, and it's wonderful, and it's like it takes so many risks and so many challenges, and like he's talked about how, and we talked one-on-one afterwards, and he talked about taking that disadvantage and turning it into an advantage. He's like, I can get away with. I won't say the exact word he used, but it's like, I can get away with stuff that no one else can.
No, I mean, I know what you're saying when you say underrated, because I think that, like, of the people who know him or have seen him, he's a favorite for sure.
Yeah.
Anybody who's ever seen him work, but he's just, I think that a lot more people should know his name.
Oh yeah. Well, his son is getting more and more recognition. His son Nate is a stand-up comedian, a fantastic stand-up comedian. And so it's in their blood. That's it. We need to get their DNA. We need to harvest it. That didn't sound creepy at all on the air. So anyways, but again, like, not to say like, other, not to say that there are household names for comedy magic in this day and age, but there's a lot of people like in our industry that are really well known. And again, I think when they hear Stephen or see Stephen, like, yes, he is that good, but he's not the first one that comes to people's mind, or one of the first ones that comes to people's mind. And I really think he should be, because he's fantastic. And
I completely agree.
I've got to get him on the show too. Actually, I got to make a note of that too.
Yeah, you should get him to tell you about his golf game, because he is he's as good a golfer as he is a comedian.
Okay, all right, here we go.
That's not true at all.
I sense there's a story here, so I'll find out. I will get to the bottom of it. UnReal Radio investigates comedy magicians' golf games. But I think this is wonderful, and I think one of the other things too about our industry is that there's so few, and again, I don't want to say this disparagingly to other people who are known in our industry, but there are so few role models, in the sense that the ones that are known aren't role models. I'm not saying that, but there's so few. Like, there are wonderful, wonderful female magicians, but people just don't know who they are, and there's not the role models there for as many young girls to stay connected in magic. There's more and more, and that's slowly changing. But of course, we'd all like to see it change faster. But I mean, who knows the amount? Because again, I mean, who knows the amount of people that this book can inspire and bring over? Not just in magic either, but but with everything else as well. Now, I know we've only got, we're already down to the last 10 minutes.
Oh, no.
I know, I know, everyone always says, oh man, okay, we can do 2 hours. I think I can do that. And then it's like, oh wait, we didn't get to like the 5 other things we wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Sure.
But I did want to ask, and this will segue into the last question I usually ask. The book, you cover a lot of things in the book, everything from how you began living to incredible true adventures in your career, some of which you've shared on the show, principles and techniques discovered to become a success in business and life. I've asked some people, like I asked Paul Draper about, he travels a lot, any travel tips, anything else. What are some of the, again, you don't have to go into a whole big spiel from the book, but what is like one aspect from the business aspect? What are some of what's like one core or quick principle or technique that you've used?
So I have a system that basically I call my live big system, and it's big. Big is the key word, and it stands for belief, imagination, and go forth and take action. So the B is for belief, and I think belief is probably the biggest thing. The biggest thing, because what you believe is ultimately what you become. I mean, for me, so many of my adventures happened because I believed that I could do them. I believed that I believed that I would be fine taking on the water torture cell, even though I technically had never done it before. I have been able to, any of the success that I have had has come because of a certain belief in my life that I just, it's not to say that you won't have doubt, but belief is so pivotal in the things that we do, because everything starts with that foundation. If you have that foundation that you think you can do something, then you can. And if you don't think you can do something, then you'll never be able to do it.
Yeah, and I think so few people, we stop thinking too soon. Like ultimately,
Right.
I'm not just talking about magic here, but like, or creativity or anything like that. But I mean, like in life, we just, and also the other thing that really bugs me is when people, there's a difference between what you believe and what you've been told to believe. Like I've always said, when it comes to anything, is always do the research yourself. Actually do the research. And research is not just turning on the news. Research means research. The news can inform that, of course, but like looking into anything, whether it's magic, whether it's a belief system, anything. But when you do the research yourself, then at the end, what you have at the end is your own thoughts and your own beliefs, and not just the result of what someone else has told you. And I think so many people are told you can't do that, or that's impossible, or all that. And there's just not one person going, wait a second, maybe you can. Maybe you won't. Yeah. Like, again, like we both wanted to be David Copperfield when we were growing up. We didn't quite. And again, I mean, I don't think just because we're not, the next, David Copperfield doesn't mean that we didn't have our own dreams and our own our own journeys as well.
Sure.
So I think that's I think that's an important thing, is to not accept something as impossible, because you then just make it impossible for yourself at that point.
And that's the message that I wanted to share with the book. As I was writing it, I was thinking about who might read it, and I wanted it to be fun. I wanted people to go, oh, this was a fun read and I'm enjoying these adventures. But what I really wanted, and what I hope will happen, is that people will read this book and be inspired by, some of the principles and techniques that I talk about. But those principles and techniques, the way that I wrote the book is that they're laid out through all the stories. You may not realize that you're reading them, and you may not realize how that all comes together until you get to the end, and I lay it out for you, and I say this example and this example and this example and this example is how this technique works. But I just really I think there are a lot of people who deal with a lot of dark times in our everybody has dark times. We all have things challenges that we think are impossible. We have self-limiting beliefs. We have we go against the odds, and sometimes odds that are long odds that feel like we can never we can never succeed. But my message through writing this book is that yes, if something feels impossible, you can in fact do that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Reshape your beliefs and make it happen. I mean, doesn't mean that it will be easy, but
Yeah.
it can be done.
Yes. And again, I mean, it's not saying like it's not going to be hard, like you said, and also doesn't mean that you're not going to just think about giving up the towel. Like sometimes it's like, oh, done. I'm done. I'm done. Like that's the thing. The point is to keep going after that. Is to just keep going a little further, a little further, a little further. I think it's a Chinese proverb, which is as soon as you're exhausted, as soon as you're at the point where you feel you can't take another step, you've gone exactly halfway to what you're truly capable of. I think I'm probably totally misquoting that and totally misspeaking it, but I mean that's the general idea of it. And again, I mean, hats off to you on everything. I mean, if we were just talking about the water torture cell, I mean, just that alone was worth it for me tonight. That was fantastic. But I mean, and everything else we covered tonight is just so awesome. So again, thank you for coming on the show. And as always, if you have another project coming out or anything else, feel more than free to let us know. We'll definitely get the word out. Cool. We have 4 minutes left until top of the hour news, and it's the official end of the show. But I just want to once again tell everyone, go to jasonmichaelsmagic.com and you can click on the tab that says book. And again, Jason, tell everyone what they can do if they go in and they type in their email address.
Yeah, so basically, if you just go to that webpage, click on book, and type in your email address, you will get an email on Tuesday morning, and it will give you the details. The details on how to get your book, the ebook, absolutely free. That will be free. You'll be able to get that ebook for free on Tuesday and on Wednesday. If you want a physical book, you can purchase one. They're available on Amazon. You can, if you really want to order one from me, if you want me to sign it or something like that, I'm happy to do that as well. But yeah, man, I mean, I hope that with the book, I hope that it will serve the Tourette syndrome community, the folks who, you've got parents and stuff who just wish they could understand what their kids are going through. And I want that to serve them. I want it to serve, people who love entertainment and love entertainment stories, people who are fans of magic. There's a lot of fun stories that, magicians will get a kick out of. And then there's just the folks who are looking for some inspiration, and looking to, overcome the frustrations that we all deal with. And I really like to point that out, that there are frustrations and impossible challenges that every single one of us deal with at some point in our life. And so I just my prayer is that the book provides some hope and some inspiration for those folks who are looking for that.
Awesome. And how many approximately how many pages are there?
It's just barely under 200 pages.
Oh, so it'll be a quick read too. So that's wonderful as well. So you're not going to be investing like a month and a half of your life to read something like this. This is great.
It's a very conversational.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And also you do teach several magic tricks as well.
I do.
Awesome.
You know what? I teach that trick that we talked about earlier, where
that's
you get
wonderful.
To bet.
Oh, yeah. So if you listen to the beginning of the show, get Jason's book. You can learn it. There you go. And I'll put my stamp of approval on that piece because I know I used it as well. So
you get the book for free, and you can win money by doing the trick.
Yes, and then you can buy the physical copy of the book. See, it's a circle. It's an ongoing circle. So there you go, you guys. Again, JasonMichaelsMagic.com. And what other, you don't have to tell us exact details, but just real quick, like how many other effects are taught in the book?
There's just 3 total.
Okay. But still, that's enough, especially with stories like this and sort of your background and everything else.
For the first 5 callers, we can have a free date with Jason. So we can date Jason.
You don't. I love the fine people of Kenosha, Wisconsin, but Jason,
Is that not a good idea?
I'm gonna tell you right now. Stick to Nashville. So I love you, Kenosha. I love you, Kenosha. Kenosha's radio station, AM 1050. But yeah. So I'll you can do that own contest. Next 5 people who get the book, you'll be entered to win a contest.
That must be what it
There
is.
you go. There you go. Jason,
Hey,
thank you.
thanks for having me, man.
Of course. Thank you
really
so much. You are welcome back anytime. Stay on the line for just a moment. We'll log off officially when we are off the air. But you guys go check out jasonmichaelsmagic.com and sign up to make sure you can get the digital copy of the book for free. I am at Joe Diamond Live on all social media, and my website is joediamondlive.com. And as always, you can go to facebook.com/Unreal Radio Show for all sorts of updates on upcoming shows. You've been listening to Unreal Radio here on AM 1050 WLIP.